Welcome to Inside Stories by Anu in partnership with the Chennai Angels. Content is king, but anyone who has been in marketing knows that when the content goes out to the customer, it often enters a black box with no visibility into the engagement or the relevance. And sales teams know what a nightmare it can be to lay their hands on the right version of the content, leave alone the right content that is customized. What if you had a platform that solved all of these problems and did much, much more? Meet Paperflite. Vinod, Yaga and Anand, thank you very much for joining. Give us a short overview of what Paperflite does and what it is right now.
Sure. So Paperflite today is a sales content management platform that brings all of the marketing content across the enterprise into a single experience in such a way that salespeople know exactly what content to use at what point in time of their sales decision-making process to be effective, right? Because you've got thousands of content lying within the organization, and it is impossible for a salesperson to read through it to figure out what to use at what situation. And that's exactly where Paperflite comes in. We help you identify what's the right piece of content. We help you share that piece of content in a great personalized experience. We help track how your prospects are engaging with the content, so sales knows exactly how to tailor the conversations to move forward.
One of the very popular term is actionable insights, right? You really have actionable insights, right?
Exactly. And it is very interesting. We've had people who've come back and asked for specific instances where, I've got my divorce papers to be shared with someone. Can you please track it? And we're like, I don't think we wanted to get into it. So it's very, very interesting how people come up with these unique references. But at the end of the day, what it does is it's not about just tracking what your prospect is doing. It is really with the intention to help them create better content, right? So for example, if I were to share a piece of content, if I'm in the sales process, what the salesperson ends up doing is they keep calling and checking, hey, did you have a chance to read it? Is this the right time for me to call? But when I know that somebody is consuming something as opposed to something else, I'll be able to give more of that information to help them make a better informed decision.
And also when marketing is investing in creating the content, then you want it to directly have a positive impact on sales. And if I'm just putting money and creating it and no one is looking at it, and I don't even know whether they're looking at it.
Which is more of what everybody asks for, ROI, right? I mean, marketing, I'm investing so much money into creating all of this content. What's the ROI? What do I get? What does this even mean? Like, people are reading it, okay, but what next?
But the other thing also is that the marketing thinks that, because I'm investing so much money, so it means more content is better. Right? So, and that's something that we see. Like, so we had this customer who spent like 6 months to 8 months doing research, and they come up with a publication that is like some hundreds of pages long. It has appendix and like chapters, graphs, and everything. After like deploying the solution for a year, they realized that nobody's reading that much. And now they're going into like a bite size kind of thing. So they're like, I'll give a summary, like an 8-page, 10-page, because that's what we are seeing is actually working out.
And then of course they have the option of, if there is someone who's more interested in the long form content, then let them consume this.
So it's also for the marketing to know that how content is being consumed, not just producing content is not just enough anymore.
2016 January, Wyoming, Delaware to Chennai, 2022. That's where the journey started, but what triggered that beginning?
But why we started and where we came from is because the three of us were friends. We've known each other for about 7 years, and what the idea was, that was something that we were always iterating. But one thing we were very clear is the three of us wanted to be together because we enjoyed working together. And the second was, all of us kind of come from a very middle class background, right? So you've been taught for a very long time that education is the way for you to move upwards. And then that's what we did. But then you come to a point that for the effort that your parents have helped you get to where we were. And if you wanted to have an exponential growth, it seemed at the time that startup was the way to go, right?
But it's a very unusual middle class attitude, right? The middle class attitude is go to a 9-to-5 job, sit there, and you have a stable income.
True.
So I think rather than it being a middle class attitude, I think it was a very aspirational approach.
I'd really say the confidence that we had on each of us is what pushed us to start something.
Yeah, and 9 to 5, we would actually work 9 to 9.
Yeah.
But we would draw the same salary. Like if I work from 9 to 5 and 9 to 9, it doesn't matter, I draw the same salary. But if we do this on our own, you know, we would actually reap a lot of those.
Yeah.
And the joy of building.
The joy of building, right? Like,
But my mother still thinks, why can't you be like everyone else? Why couldn't you have just gotten an MBA, go to the US and settle? So I did have an MBA, but I chose to come back.
Yeah.
So on every time she goes to the airport and she sees her age group coming out of the airport, and she's like, இவங்களுக்கெல்லாம் கொடுத்து வச்சிருக்கு, நமக்கு அமெரிக்கால போய் இருக்க கொடுத்து வைக்கல, போய் படிச்சே திரும்பி இங்க வந்துட்டேன். So I think they still value that, and now when they see it, because we don't come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Right.
The closest entrepreneur we would have known is some uncle would have had a poti kadai where he would have lost all his money, right?
Yeah.
That's always
Not
the
a
frame
great
of
example.
reference. Exactly. That's always the frame of reference. So for people, for our parents, our family to see this building and how we grow is that aspirational thing that is going.
Choosing to build something like Paperflite would have come from your experience in an organization where there were pain points, right?
First-hand experience. We've seen these problems. We looked at every single product that's available in the market. We've customized all of that to our needs, and none of that actually worked well for us. So it's a pain point that you really, really know up close. And we know that we're not going to pick up from a product that's already in the market, build something. Rather, we have to leapfrog, find a different solution. We went after products like Netflix, product like YouTube, where heavy content is being managed. Pick up inspirations from them to see how that will apply to a business, to an enterprise, to an organization. What we had in mind when we started.
And there were a zillion other ideas along with it as well. We wanted to do a GPS tracker for mobile buses to be notified. Jaeger was very interested in robotics. We wanted to do robotics, but this seemed to be something that were more pragmatic, where people would be able to see a tangible change in their behavior before and post purchase, and therefore the willingness to pay for it.
Correct,
well.
correct. Did you have to do a lot of pivots and changes in order to make it a marketable solution?
I wouldn't call it a pivot, so to speak, but our understanding of the market kind of grew exponentially the day we launched in it. And I think no matter how much of a research that you do would ever suffice to actually see what happens when you put a solution in front of the customer, right? So for us, a lot of our hypotheses were validated, and there were a lot of the assumptions that were invalidated as well. For example, our assumption when we started was that marketing will create content and sales will consume content, right? That was a very simple assumption. Therefore, we had two versions of the platform. But the moment we deployed the solution, you realize that content is much more pervasive than that. There is so many users, there are so many people who consume it very differently, and that kind of made us go back to the drawing board and rethink about the architecture of the platform to kind of build where we are.
Right. And that would be your core competence, wouldn't it be, Anand?
Parts of it. So the whole technical part of it, yes.
Yeah.
The product, the hypothesis and all, Jaeger, he would drive those things. So between Jaeger and me, when it comes, we worked previously together in the prototyping thing. So we would do this mini iterations of the product quite frequently, like almost on a weekly basis. So the thing that he said also, the hypothesis that we put it out there and we failed, in 3 weeks we actually rebuilt the whole thing and put it out again. Obviously a lot of sleepless nights and all of those things, but we did that because our past experience allowed us to do that, like, you know, build it in such a way that we could just reiterate and push it there. Vinod comes to us from the subject matter and the voice of the customer.
Yeah.
Really.
That's a discovery for him.
Exactly.
Important.
I need all the things like the annoying voice of the customer. I want this.
Yeah, that's more like it.
The first version was the nice version.
I know, I should have
and
just-
you should have just
Stayed with that.
Yes.
That is also something he says. Just don't whisper compliments. So thank you, Anand.
yeah.